Good afternoon. Welcome to the virtual conference organized by the ISAOWB. And my topic of presentation is Challenges in Airway Management in ICU. Myself, Dr. Ehsan Ahmed, working as an intensivist and chief of critical care at KPC Medical College and Hospital, Kolkata. As you all know, traditionally the airway management of a critical ill has followed the same principles and same technique of intubation of the surgical patients in operation theatre, but it has become increasingly apparent that it requires a qualitatively different approach to that of the operating room. One significant difference between the two environments is that when difficulty is encountered, the intensivist does not have the option of postponing the procedure because in the ICU it is always a life-saving intervention. So there is an interesting article in Indian Journal of Anesthesia in 2011. The tracheal intubation in the ICU, is it a life-saving procedure or is it life-threatening procedure? Why? Because there are so many instances happened where during intubation patient had cardiac arrest or severe anoxic brain injury. So there are some differences between intubating in an operation theatre environment and intubation in an ICU or emergency department. So in the operation theatre, you have an skilled anesthetist, you have elective intubation for prepared patients and optimal conditions. Then you can wake up the patient if you face difficulty in intubating. And usually the patients are stable patients with good physiological reserve. But on the other hand, in the operation theatre, ICU or an emergency department, the people who are intubating, they may have varying skill levels from a junior resident to a new technicians. Then you don't have always time for patient preparation. Patient may suddenly crash and you have to intubate. Patient may have a full stomach. Patient may be in the shock, whether it's cardiogenic shock or septic shock. Then suboptimal environment due to space factor. You may not go to the head end. You may not get adequate space for positioning yourself and the patient. Then you also cannot wake up the patient because patient may be comatose, patient may be in shock, and patient may be unstable with hemodynamically instability and very less or no physiological reserve at all. So ARI management in an intensive care patient differs significantly from routine surgical procedure in an operating room, and critically ill patients have usually less physiological reserve and complications are more common. Maintenance of patent airway, adequate ventilation, and pulmonary gas exchange is very crucial and important in critically ill patients. So the standard pre-oxygenation that we practice in an optimized surgical patient in an operation theatre is not applicable to the ICU patients. We would fail to sustain adequate PaO2 in critically ill patients with a hypermetabolic profile like patient with septic shock during the apneic period for intubations. Then there are lack of airway expertise, that is a high risk for multiple attempt of intubation, which may cause airway trauma. There may be esophageal intubation and intubation failure, and the consequences are very adverse with high percentage of cardiac arrest or severe brain injury. The physicians, other than the anesthesiologist, are usually reluctant to use muscle relaxants before intubation in the ICU. They do without sedation paralysis, sometimes they use sedation but no muscle relaxants. So it's found that the fewer complication occurs if you use a muscle relaxant during a difficult airway. And certain particular issues are related to ICU only. That is, usually re-intubation following a trial of extubation sometimes may be necessary, or accidental extubation by the patients are very common in an ICU scenario. And re-intubation may be unexpectedly difficult in hypoxic, distress, and uncooperative patients with multiple risk factors and in patients who have been extubated after prolonged intubation because there are some airway edema is a common sequelae of this type of patients. So the common problem, the common challenges during tracheal intubation in ICU care unit may be divided into ICU related factors, patient factors, and operator factors. Among the ICU-related factors, you may find infrastructure-related factors like lack of space around the patient, then poor access to the patient's head end, poor lighting, trained help may not be available. Then you may not get the adequate equipment like a fiber optic bronchoscope or supraglottic airway or video laryngoscope in that particular ICU. Then you may not get adequate time also to prepare the patient. You may have to do an emergency intubation throughout the day, in the middle of night or in the middle of day, without any expert help. Then there are certain patient factors like airway assessment. It's very difficult in airway assessment for ICU patients due to lack of time or patient uncooperative. Then there are always risk of aspiration as patient may be full stomach, patient may have a gastroparesis due to the critical illness, or patient may not be fasted for adequate time and will require an emergency intubation. Then there may be challenging anatomies like maxillofacial trauma or cervical spine injury, burns, etc. Then you cannot adequately pre-oxygenate also because patient may have severe ARDS, patient may have ventilation perfusion mismatch, shunt from the underlying disease, and also reduced functional residual capacity. And patient may rapidly desaturate. Then patient may have hemodynamic instability, like patient is in shock, is on multiple vasopressors, and waking up of the patient is not an option otherwise. And there may be some operator factors like training and experience is less and scenario may be very stressful both due to the operator related factors or patient related factors or maybe a combination of all these. So the most important thing is to predict whether this airway management is going to be difficult or not. And unfortunately, those who apply for the operating patients may not be applicable in the ICU. So far from the data from the, it is the only airway tool that has been validated in assessing a difficult airway in critically ill patient is a Makocha score, which comprises of some items like Malampoti, obstructive sleep apnea, reduced mobility of cervical spine, limited mouth opening, then patient's factor like coma, severe hypoxemia, and operator related factor like non-anesthetist, physician, or non so much skilled anesthesiologist and like that. So a score total score is about out of 12. If you get a score of 3 or more, it predicts a difficult intubation. In an emergency situation, for example, suppose if I am called for an emergency intubation, difficult intubation, so what I look for, I don't go for all this. I just look for the mouth opening, the cervical spine mobility, and sometimes the front of the neck, because we may have to go for an emergency echothyroidotomy. So we have to prepare for a difficult scenario. So how we should prepare to deal with these challenges? There are definitely certain guidelines, some in the UK guidelines. We Indian have a very good guidelines. These are the guidelines published in British Journal of Anesthesia in 2018. Guidelines for management of tracheal intubation in critically ill adults. Those who are interested can go through it. There is one guideline published in the Indian Journal of Anesthesia in 2016, the All India Difficult Airway Association guidelines for tracheal intubation in intensive care unit. Basically, the concept of all these guidelines is to make a team approach with a ventilation intubation care bundle, just like a ventilation care bundle we follow in the ICU. If we have a adequate plan for all these difficult scenario, then we will be better. We can better manage this difficult airway scenario in the ICU. This is taken from the Difficult Airway Society guideline. So first prepare the patient, then prepare your equipment, then prepare the team, and lastly prepare for the difficulty. So prepare the patient, obtain a reliable IV access, then optimize your position of the patient, airway management, and then optimal pre-oxygenation either with a CPAP or NIV, or sometimes we use the HFNO. And even during laryngoscopy, we may give supplemental oxygen through an HFNO. Then optimize the patient state. If the patient is hypovolemic, give fluid. If the patient is in shock, give some vasopressors to optimize the blood pressure. If the patient have a rice tube, then you can aspirate the rice tube before going for the intubation and ventilation. Then prepare the equipment. It is better if you have your video laryngoscopy in your ICU. Then you check the bougie, stilate, working suction machines, supraglottic airway devices like that, and check the fauna set, that is front of neck airway access set, and check the drugs. For example, if you're a hypertensive patient, you should give ketamine or etomidate in your hand. Then prepare the team, allocate the roles of each member of the team, and then prepare for the difficulty. Means you have to have a plan A, B, C, and D. Plan A is drug and laryngoscopy. Plan B, if you fail with a normal laryngoscopic attempt, then you should go for plan B or C, like supraglottic airway device, fiber optic intubation, video laryngoscopy, etc. If you still fail and go for a failed intubation scenario, then you can go for a front of neck access, like emergency kicothyrotomy with a scalpel, bougie, and tube technique. So the Indian guidelines have suggested for 10 intubation bundle components, that is 4 in the pre-intubation bundle, then for during intubation 2, and for post-intubation there is another 4 component. So pre-intubation you must have presence of 2 operators at least, and if you should give fluid loading if the patient is not in a cardiogenic pulmonary edema. Then PPI for long-term sedation and pre-oxygenated either with NIPPB or HFNO, whatever device you have in your ICU. Then go for a rapid sequence induction with intermediate or ketamine with a muscle relaxant like succinylcholine, choline if the patient does not have hyperkalemia or severe acidosis, of course. And then in the post-intubation, you should immediately confirm the placement of the tube by away from capnography. If the patient is hypovolemic, add some vasopressors like noradrenaline, then initiate long-term sedation and go for lung protective ventilations. So this is the flow chart taken from the British Journal of Anesthesia guidelines. On the right hand side, if you see the plan way approach of tackle intubation of critically ill patients, fast pre-oxygen and checklist for all those devices, then go for the laryngoscopy and intubation, but do not repeat maximum 3 attempts. So and don't make the same mistake in every attempt. And even after 3 attempts, if you fail to do the intubation, then declare it as a failed intubation and go to the plan B or C, that is rescue oxygenation technique. Rescue oxygenation technique with second generation supraglottic airway device like intubating LMA or POCIL LMA, and continue to go for oxygenation while you declare it as a cannot intubate, cannot oxygenate scenario, and go to plan D, that is front of neck airway access. So with a scalpel, you just open the cricothyroid membrane and then put a bougie and a tube, a 5 or 6 millimeter cupped endotracheal tube inside the cricothyroid membrane and go for rescue oxygenation. So on the left side, the same chart has been, the plan D has been elaborated in a cannot intubate, cannot oxygenate scenario, call for help and plan for the front of neck airway access. So in summary, complications during tackle intubation in patient with acute hypoxic respiratory failure with a hypermetabolic state like severe sepsis and shock or hypoxic is contemplated are frighteningly common in ICU scenario. The patients have a poor response to pre-oxygenation, and emergent airway instrumentation in the hands of an inexperienced doctor sometimes leads to multiple attempts, creating a difficult airway scenario with